So welcome everyone. I'm Rob Akins. For those of you I have not met before, I work up at Nemours. I'm one of the principal scientists, a full professor up there. So I have a research day job, but in my spare time, I'm also the director for the professional development corps for the Excel program. So a few years ago, we started partnering with the pilot grant program to do flight school, right? If you want to be a pilot, go to flight school to help people, especially if they have not applied for a CTR pilot grant before. This is meant to be interactive. I will go through just making sure that everyone is kind of level set, kind of 101 type information that's in the RFA, make sure you're aware of it. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Dr. Wenner, who is the director of the pilot program, is conflicted in the beginning. She'll be a few minutes late, but she will join also, and then she'll help out. We'll go through the specifics of the dashboard and sort of the information that goes in and answer any questions you have. So this is for projects that would start in January of 2027. So it's the current pilot grant mechanism. So some of the things I want to make sure that you are aware of, the timeline. So April 11th at 5 p.m. is when the full application is due. That is a hard deadline. Everything has to be in and uploaded by 5 p.m. By the week of August 17th, and it's not a specific day because a number of people have to look at the project has to be reviewed, merit reviewed, and scored, and then considered. But then that week, potential awardees are notified. There's a 3 asterisk date, and I emphasize this in flight school all the time. The IRB and IACUC approvals are needed before you get the funding, which is different than some other funding mechanisms. And the reason for that, if you're new to these idea mechanisms, is that NIH wants to be the last approver for the project. So you must have your just-in-time information, which includes your IRB approval memo, that has to match the title of your project. So don't wait to submit if you need IRB or IACUC or other regulatory sort of required approvals. You have to have those by September, end of September. It takes a while. We're a multi-institutional organization, so UD needs time to pull everything together and get proposals and get all their information together to send the package of proposals to NIH, who finally approves them. That's just the way it is in the idea mechanisms. The CTR and the INBRE is the same way, and I think most of the COBREs are the same way. So NIH has to sign off. So once you get the notification in August 17th, that's the notification from the CTR program. So people like Megan and Greg Hicks is the overall PI, and we get to weigh in from the Professional Development Corps. That's just us saying we would like to fund you. You are not funded until you hear from NIH. The projected start date is January 1st of 2027. So there's quite a lead time between now and when you would start. As a reminder, submissions are really due Monday the 11th by 5. For those of you who've been through this before, that sounds redundant. For those of you who have not, I encourage you to pay attention. 5 p.m. is the time. The PI actually submits the proposal. It's through a dashboard that we'll look at in a few minutes on the Excel website. To do that, which you guys already are because you've already been through kind of the first step of this program, but you have to be registered on Excel and have a valid ORCID account. And that ORCID account has to be up to date. Your Excel profile has to be up to date. And those things have to be linked. There are, as you guys know, 2 types of pilots that are considered in this round. And all the projects have to fit. And again, this should be kind of organic to everyone by now. I'm just saying it in case someone's brand new. The project has to fit within current NIH priorities. That is always the case, whether or not we agree now or in the past with NIH priorities. They're the ones with the funding, so we have to match what they want us to do. The budgets are 12 for regular CNTs, clinical and translational pilots, or 18 months if you're a community engaged pilot, for up to $100,000 in direct costs. And if you're a PI, you should already be working with your, if you have a research office or someone who's helping you prepare the budgets and the documentation and your mentors to get this all straightened out. So they can help you get everything set up. There are additional funds, indirect costs, that are associated with this, but the PIs really you don't think about that. You design your project to work under the $100,000. You are discouraged from requesting salary and encouraged for the institution to provide a commitment or a cost share for your time to work on this, but you're not prohibited from requesting salary. The one thing to keep in mind, and this is mostly for the new PIs, whether you charge salary or not, you have to indicate the effort that you'll devote. This is a federally funded project. So if you're going to spend 10% of your time working on it, you still have to indicate that in the budget. And in fact, that 10% effort rolls up to your total effort, which can never go above 100%. So even though there's no money requested in the budget, you still have to indicate your effort. And then you will, once everything's all done and signed, and at the end, if you want to, we can talk about all the just-in-time stuff. What happens at the end? Really, you should be focusing on what happens at the beginning here. But that effort will have to be documented. UD, if anybody's on from UD, there's a minimum of 1% cost share that's required for you. And the budgets follow all NIH budget guidelines for allowability and allocability of costs. So the folks who are on here from the research offices or from the grants development offices know exactly what those things are. And they can help you design your project or the budget for your project in a way that will go through and will allow you to execute the project. If you are a junior, so if you have not previously been funded, and there's a more specific definition that we'll talk about in a second. So if you're kind of new to the game and you haven't had a K or an R grant, you have to identify a mentor that will help you through the process. The professional development core, it's difficult for us to match you with a mentor, but we can help relationships and we can help fill in gaps. And we certainly have a lot of mentorship experience, and so we can help with that. But if you're junior, you have to have a mentor indicated on your proposal. Anytime you have a question, you can raise your hand, Julianne will look, or just pop in. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this is high level, and Megan will be joining us in a minute. The format is similar if you guys are familiar with R03 proposals, which are relatively short amount of time and length. The Ames page is 1 page, just like in an R03, but the strategy section is no longer than 4 pages. So you're restricted. The R03s are 6 pages. So you're restricted to a shorter research strategy. And the research strategy has a number of components that you have to cover. So don't wait to configure your research strategy. That's the part that's going to be primarily merit reviewed, and will determine whether or not you get funded. But there are certain components you have to have in there, certain things you have to discuss in the research strategy. The merit scoring, which I can talk about at a future date, how the review criteria work, but there's relatively new criteria. You guys can have these slides. I'll give them to Julianne, because I'm not sure we can share in the Teams, or you can find the new criteria. In fact, it's also in the RFP. So make sure you're aware of how you're going to be reviewed, so that you can target, your audience, what they're looking for. You can write your research strategy in a way that hits the points that they need to see to give you a good score, right? You don't want to have a great idea and fail to describe or explain something that's critical to the review, because then you won't get a good score, and it may feel inappropriate because the research is good. So make sure you know what you need to include, and who's looking at this, or people who are experienced at reviewing NIH grants. The research has to fall on the translational research spectrum, and it has to have a focus, at least some directionality toward health needs and outcomes. The definition that PDC uses and NIGMS might use, but for sure the Excel program uses, is defined in this article by Daniel Rubio from a number of years ago. So if you're curious about what exactly is specified, your gut tells you it's the whole spectrum, as long as it's directed toward the research, the health needs outcome, but the specific definitions in Rubio. The priorities for Excel, another thing, whenever you write a grant, you write it toward what the people who have the money want to give you the money for. So make sure that you address these things and think about these things in the writing of especially the research plan and the Ames page and the science parts. The The priorities are for projects addressing medically underserved populations, especially conditions in Delaware. This is the IDEA program is focused to specific types of states, including the state of Delaware. Junior PIs are prioritized. It doesn't mean that you will get something. Think of the junior rank as being a discriminator. If you're tied with someone who's senior, the junior person in terms of the rank, the junior person is more likely to get the funding. So if you're of junior rank, assistant professor or equivalent, with no prior NIH funding, which is I mentioned earlier, except an F grant or something as a trainee, and no prior R01 or equivalent as a PI, then you're considered a new investigator. You're junior from the perspective of Excel. Anyone with no prior Excel funding is except for MRDAs. That's a program that I'm not going to talk about today, but I'm happy to talk about. But if you had prior Excel funding, you're deprioritized. Again, this isn't like you're dropping off the map or off a cliff, but you ultimately what happens in any grant review is you get ranked. So the people with the money kind of go down and they just fund as many people as they can. If you have the best science and the best score since sliced bread, you're likely to get funded no matter what. But if you're kind of on that borderline and you have prior funding, then you might drop a little bit. And there's just something to be aware of. It's something you'll have to explain in the submission, what the prior funding was for. Any projects that are interdisciplinary or span multiple kind of regions of the translational spectrum are highly encouraged. And just so you're aware, at least the community engagement pilots will be recommended, and if possible means if they're meritorious and funding is actually available. And all the partner institutions will be represented again, if possible. All right, some things you really need to know because you're going to be required to do these things. This is just notes to self as you're thinking about how this project is going to go when you get the funding, but you will be required to attend conferences and present your work. And there's some listed there that are required. So when you are invited to these things, remember you're required to attend. The organizers are often very polite in inviting you. People like me will remind you that you are supposed to go, and that just not wanting to go is not a reason you are required. You're required to present at least once we have a touch base, which I think the investigators have all been on at least once on Thursday morning. So you're required to present to us. That's the PDC's Junior Investigator Network touch base. At least once to the communities of interest through the CEO, the Community Engagement and Outreach Core. You are required, and I'm going to take an aside here for a second, you are required to cite the Excel grant and comply with NIH public access policy. That last part has more to it than you might be thinking because the public access policy now requires that publications are immediately accessible. So that means essentially open access publishing, which means cost. So you have to comply with the public access policy, and and there are other people on the call that can talk to you about that when it comes up. So just something to keep in mind, and something to consider. There's also newer, I would say, interpretations about what's considered a foreign component on a publication. So as you're thinking through, which you should be thinking through about the research, how you're going to get the grant, what you're going to do, and how that's going to be disseminated and published, you need to be aware of these issues about having addresses from foreign institutions in your author list, for example. So as you go forward, the take-home message is, look, there's some complexity to what you're doing because it's associated with federal funding, but there are people, including the PDC, including Megan's group, including sort of your mentors and your research offices that can help you, but don't turtle up and disappear once you get the funding. And I'm assuming you're all going to get funded. You have to stay engaged, and we can help you through that whole process. And you're required to serve as a grant reviewer going forward. For mentored awardees, junior people, active participation in the process is required for both mentors and mentees. That's through the PDC, and we're happy to help you with that. Julianne Ross is the main contact person and the person that coordinates professional development core across all the sites. So for the entire CTR. So if you have a question, you can get to Julianne or to me, or to anybody in the group. I'm sorry I didn't put it on here. In my mind, you guys already know this. The email address for us is mentoring@de-ctr.org. So a bunch of people check that email address. If you have a question about, you need something, you're looking for something, you challenge, you don't remember what Rob said you were supposed to do or something like that, you can just email us and we will address that. You are required to and this might seem a little onerous the first time you do it, have a full profile on the Excel website and update it at least twice a year. The reason for that, there are multiple reasons for that. That's where we get a lot of our data about what's happening, but we're also required to have information to send to NIH because they're the funders. So having that profile helps us with something called an RPPR, which you may have heard of before and will certainly learn about as you move forward with federal funding. If you have clinical research and it's applicable to clinicaltrials.gov, you are absolutely required to keep that by them, by law, and by Excel, to keep everything updated on clinicaltrials.gov as an absolute requirement. The site, you have a site PI. As I said, you guys know the CTR is multi-institutional, and there's different programs. So the CTR is a big grant. Megan Wenner runs the pilot program for everybody, all the institutions. I lead the professional development core for everybody across all the institutions. Each institution, in addition to that support, each institution has a site PI, an administrative site PI. So it's Suzanne Morton at University of Delaware, it's Rod Scott at Nemours. So you're required to keep in touch with them. We will make sure, and they will make sure to be connected with you. In fact, most of the site PIs have periodic meetings for you to present, because the site PIs are actually the ones that have the final oversight and the responsibility back to NIH. You're responsible for reporting outcomes, even during the award, after the award, up to 3 years after your award ends, your pilot, and if requested during kind of the program life of the Excel program. We won't bother you for things we don't need, but when we need something, it's because we need it. As an example, the NIH program officer asked for it, and usually we have a limited amount of time to produce that information. So just so you're aware, that's all high-level stuff. Megan, were you able to join?
Yep, I'm here.
So I was going to go, I'm happy to throw this over to you for like nitty-gritty, and you're more in tune with the dashboard. So if you want to lead people through or talk about the specifics of how you submit, that's great. If you think we can just open to questions now after everyone's sort of kind of generally oriented, that's great too. But my intention was to let you take the lead, or if you want me to go through it, that's fine too. Whatever you would like.
Yeah, I'm happy to go through it. I have some issues with Teams and sharing my screen, so we can try.
Okay, if you have trouble, I'll take it back and then you'll just tell me where you want to go and I'll.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Here, let me stop. That helps you. Does anybody have any questions either from, and again, I just did basic high level, make sure you're aware of type stuff. If you've already looked through the submission pages or you have questions, I'm happy. Well, we all watch Megan struggle with Teams, which we all do.
Yeah.
If anyone has a question, you can just feel free to ask it now. I'm happy to handle it.
I have a question, Robert. Thank you very much for the info. This might be too specific, but for the bio sketches, do they have to be submitted in the new Science V format, or are they just standard?
Megan, you have to use.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, they have to be in the new format for the
Okay.
Science CV. Yes. Hang on, I'll be right back. Hang on.
Sure. Yeah. So if you're trying to guess what the rule is going to be, the rule is going to be NIH because it's NIH funded. So we have to follow their guidance.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thanks.
and if people don't know what we're talking about, please reach out soon, either to your mentor or through the mentoring email. It's not rocket science. It's really not that hard, although I would say people like me who are older complain about it a lot, but my science CV is not really that difficult. but you do need to pay attention to it. And you do need, it pulls from ORCID. So there's some steps that you have to do. Better to do those sooner rather than later. I would say also, if you have human subjects in your study, it's better to look at those forms that worked now, soon, rather than waiting to try to deal with that at the end. I know you have a lot to think about in putting the grant together, but if those two things in particular, I would make sure to take a look at early. And we're, again, the PDC and I know Megan's group, we're happy to help as much as we can. All right, so I'm going to throw it back over to Megan.
Okay, thanks. So when you go to the CTR website, you can click on funding opportunities, right? So after you log in, and then here you would click on apply for funding opportunities. You can see that the CTR pilot grants are here. So you would just click on submit proposal. One of the things is that none of your information from the LOI gets transferred over to the full proposal. So you unfortunately have to start over from scratch in terms of entering in a lot of this information. So on the left-hand side are the different pages that you'll kind of go through to complete for the grant proposal. So, a few that I just want to go through and point out real quick, and then I definitely want to let some time for questions. So you would just paste in your title and abstract, a lay description. If the research involves multiple disciplines, so if this is interdisciplinary, you can click yes, and then you can just type in what other disciplines this is. If you just hit save and continue, then it'll prompt you to go to the next page. You can also, of course, this probably just logged me out. You can also just jump back and forth between the tabs on the left-hand side here. So on this next page with investigator status, are you a new investigator like Rob just talked about? So it gives you the definition here. It's also in the instructions and reminds you that if you're a junior investigator and haven't had a prior NIH KRR series type of grant, that you need a mentor and that you have to work on a mentor compact and like a mentorship plan. So then again, you would just click yes or no. When you click yes, if you're a junior investigator, down the road, it will prompt you to make sure that you upload your mentor's biosketch and the mentor compact. You don't have to submit an IDP for these grants. It's highly encouraged that you create one and work with your mentor. So even though it says here that you have to submit it, you're not required to submit the IDP, but you need the mentor compact and the mentor biosketch and the letter of support. It just asks what career stage you're at. For the next tab with team members, it will ask you if this is a multi-PI project. If it is and you click yes, notice that there's a button that appears that says add new PI. So if you're MPI and you need to add the other PI, you would use this button here as opposed to just adding a new team member. So if you watch when I click no, this button will disappear. So then if you want to just add in your, like say, mentor or your collaborators, if you click that button, you can go in and search. So Rob, let me see if I can find you. So if Rob was my mentor, I would pick Rob, and then I can pick, whether he's a mentor or collaborator. I'm also able to upload the bio sketch here. So then you can add in your team members there. The next several pages are just going to ask some basic questions about you and your background. There's an option to say wish not to answer or don't want to provide. So you can go through these tabs as well. These other tabs will ask if your project is working with a medically underserved population. So if you click yes, it will ask you to identify which population that is. The same for if we go to the next tab with medically underserved area, it will ask that you describe what that is. For the next tab with translational science, it will ask you to classify where on the translational spectrum your project falls. And then on the next page, it will ask you which are the kind of categories or what the focus of study is for this to determine if it falls, again, within one of the areas of focus. On the next page, if your project is a community engaged project, you would click yes. And you would then be asked to upload your community engagement and dissemination plan. So this is new this year that we're having in a separate document an ability for you to go into additional details to describe that. So as I was testing this, I uploaded an abstract and cover letter just to make sure the files were working. But if, again, your project is community engaged and you click yes, you would then click upload to upload the document for this engagement and dissemination plan. And there's additional instructions provided in the RFP in terms of what that is required, what's required for that. And if you're a community engaged project, you should definitely be working with the CEO core as well. This is just a note that you will have as a community engaged pilot. You'll have 18 months in this funding year to be able to spend down the award. And then it will ask you what your definition is for community engagement for your project, like what your project will be doing. That makes it community engaged. For the budget, the requested amount, this is pretty set. These pilots are $100,000 this year, so it's an increase from $80,000 in the past, so that's very exciting. On the ORCID tab, it'll just confirm that your account is set up and linked. And then on the files page is where we'll go through whether this is human subjects or not in a clinical trial. There's a new change to the definitions of clinical trials. So I think there's going to be a little bit of back and forth in terms of interpretation of some of those definitions, but I pasted a table into the RFP, and I also provided the link to the NIH announcement that came out so that you can see. They also provide some examples on the website as to an example of a trial, what the outcomes are, and then whether you would identify this as a clinical trial or not. You don't have to provide the number yet. Presumably, you would set this up once you were selected for funding. If your project involves vertebrate animals, you would just click yes or no. The just-in-time documents are not due until after the projects undergo review and the awards are selected to be recommended to NIH. And then at that point, you would be required to then submit your either your IACUC protocol or your IRB protocol. Then on this same page with the files, this gives you like an overall summary of the required files that you need. Some of these will get uploaded along the way, for example, like your biosketch or other members' biosketches, the community engagement and dissemination plan. But this is really a way to make sure all of the requirements are uploaded. You have to use PDFs, although the files must be PDFs when you upload them into the dashboard. So once you have your final Word documents done, just convert them to PDF and upload those. So here's where you will upload your research strategy, specific aims, your project summary page, the other requirements, which are the prior idea awards, your own biosketch, again, if you haven't uploaded it already on the other page, and if you need other letters of support or things like that. So if there's other documents or other letters or things like that from community partners or whatnot that you feel like you need to upload and it doesn't fit into one of these forms, then you can upload this into other. There are always some quirks, I feel like, when I use this system. So because I clicked on vertebrate animals, it says required, even though it's not. Sometimes with the cookies in the system, and depending on which browser you're using, I've found that I've had some issues and I've needed to clear things out. So please just make sure that you're not waiting until 4:50 on the due date. And that way, if you have issues, just reach out to me right away. And our MIS team is fantastic to work through if there's some of these quirks that come up. I remember this happened last year, and I think I had to clear my cookies, and then that solved the problem. There's just a few other questions in on the next few tabs. This one, it just asks, obviously, how you came about with this project. If it hasn't come from any of these, just click other. You have to submit a response for this page to move forward. This next page just asks if you use some of the resources available through the CTR and the other cores. And then the summary page should allow you to look through and see what's missing. So again, even though on the files page it required me to have, for some reason, that vertebrate animals form, it's not showing up here that I need it to submit. It's just saying that the only file that I need still is this community engagement plan. So then once all of these files are in here, you would be able to submit and then download the full PDF proposal so that you would have it for your records. So I'll stop, and then anyone can ask questions about the dashboard and the website and anything to help just make sure that this process goes smoothly for all of you.
Hi, I have a question. Thank you for complete overview through that. So under the department head actually or chair, who is supposed to be in case of, is it Dr. Schaefer or
So hey Shaka, it's Rob. That's a specific Nemours question, right?
yeah?
So it would typically, because you're under the Department of Research as opposed to a clinician who's under a separate department, would probably be Dr. Brousseau, or he might delegate that to one of his 3 associate directors for research. But the PDC can help you, and anyone from any of the institutions, if you have a question like that, we can help you try to navigate through. The PDC has representatives from all the different institutions, right? But because I happen to know you're in the Department of Research that rolls up to Dr. Brousseau, he might ask Tom Schaefer to do it, but Dr. Brousseau is technically the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Aaron, did you have a
Hey,
question?
I actually don't have, I have 2 things that I'm hoping you can share your screen and show, just because these are common questions we get through
Sure.
the PDC pretty often.
Yes.
If you scroll to the top, just like Megan said, that our MIS team is outstanding in helping you and finding the issues and getting behind the issues. For folks who don't know, I think it's under the more, you can also submit a ticket, because sometimes people will say, and then if you click help, you can submit a ticket to the MIS team, because sometimes we get comments like, I accidentally hit submit, I don't know what to do now, especially when you're in that panic mode. The MIS team is wonderful. Just put in a ticket, they'll get back to you very quickly. So there is that service there. And then the other thing I don't know if you could show is where the consult requests are, because I would strongly encourage folks on the call to utilize both the Bird Core and the CEO Core. They're wonderful resources, and it looks really strong on your application when you engage with them. And if you haven't put in a request yet, I would encourage you to do so again, just because there's so many preliminary applications that were accepted. So you want to make sure you can get in to see them before you submit. So.
That's great. Yep. So under resources, if you do consult requests, and then it allows you to submit to any of the cores for a consult. And yes, please make sure that you're reaching out to each of these cores, especially if you're a community engaged project and you submit it and do not consult with the core, that's going to be a very big problem. So please make sure that you're utilizing these resources. They are free for you right now. So I would highly recommend that you take advantage of them. Jonathan.
Hello. For the mentor, so I'm a new investigator, I guess. Can this be someone who you've had a previous mentor relationship with before, or is this kind of like an F where that's highly frowned upon?
No, it can be someone that you've worked with before.
Okay.
Again, in the mentor compact, where is that page? There is a place where you can download.
It was under files. I saw it
Is it under files?
Megan.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
Right. So here under the mentor compact, there's a template that you can download for doing this. And then there's also in the RFP and the instructions, it kind of highlights, big picture what you need to address. So it's totally fine if this is a person that you've previously worked with and they've been mentoring you along the way. I think that's great that you already have that relationship established, and that they're very familiar with your research goals, your productivity, and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
it's totally fine.
And then can I ask one more question?
Sure.
For the underserved populations or areas, are there specific definitions of those somewhere?
Yes. Let's see. If you go here, oh, I thought this was one of the tabs that had click on this for more information.
It's in
Like
the
what would
RFP,
other-
I think, too, right?
Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I think it's in the RFP. I think the link's in the RFP, like in the directions,
Yes.
right? I could find
Yes,
it.
I
Let's see.
believe
Okay.
so.
That includes it would include whatever the subcategory other would be in the instructions.
So if you feel like you're working with a population that's medically underserved, you
Okay.
click other, and then you have the option to type it in here to describe what that is.
Okay. And is area specifically an area? It looks like there's
It's, yep, in
specifically
Delaware,
locations.
yes, right. So for example, in Sussex County, there's a number of underserved populations and areas as well.
Okay.
So are you specifically working with participants in that area, or will the work that you're doing translate to help the population in that area?
Okay. So even if I collect data like at University of Delaware, it still could be people coming from Newcastle County and underserved areas.
Correct.
So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes,
And if
thank
I
you.
Can add to the mentor question. The PDC has recently happy to talk to you. If the mentor you have, which is, I think actually helps you on review, although I don't specifically review, I feel like that does help if you have an established relationship. But if they're missing a key component of what you need to succeed in Delaware, we can help you maybe find someone who fills that niche, right? So,
Okay.
yeah. So just
Thank you.
reach out and let us know. Carly had a question that's in the chat. I don't know if you can see that. I can read it to you. Are you able to share what makes a project community engaged? She's offering a Ask CEO core, but I think the definition is also available through the interface.
Yes. Let me go back and find here we go. So if you go to the Community Engaged Project tab, here you can click on that button and it says, it provides you a definition. And there's also information in the RFP. And this is also where if you have a question about like, is this really community engaged or not, this is where the CEO core can also be very helpful to make that final determination for you as well. Again, if you think it's community engaged, I would definitely reach out to make sure that you're talking with them and having a consult. Along that line, even if your project is not community engaged, so say you're doing a basic science project that's translational for clinical practice, even though it's not community engaged, you are still required to talk about community engagement in your proposal. You do not have to do this separate document about this engagement and dissemination plan, but within your research strategy, you have to address community engagement. So say you're doing, again, like a basic science study in an animal model of, I'm just going to say preeclampsia, right? Like, even though you're not working with humans and it has nothing to do, right, with maybe treating patients, how will you take the results of these findings and potentially be able to translate that to a community? A big part of the CTR is to have this community engaged piece and to make sure that what we're doing here with this grant and in Delaware, this research can go back to the community to improve the health and lives of Delawareans. So again, even if you're a basic science project, you have to address community engagement. And please do not just like throw one sentence in at the end. That is not acceptable.
And I can add, it's not acceptable for the review, but it is really good for your career long term. It might not help you immediately if you're a basic scientist, but getting advocates, getting to patient populations of the disease you're working on will pay off for you in the long run. It is sort of what I tell people, it's kind of good for you medicine. So it might seem like a hurdle you have to do, but we're not making you do it just to be pains. It's actually very helpful for you going forward in getting donation funds, having input from community advisory groups later on when you're developing bigger studies. So I strongly recommend that you take advantage of that resource.
Yes. Catherine, you had a question? Oh, sorry, I'm going with the hands up in here.
I have one question. Can I ask?
Okay, go ahead. And then Catherine, you're up next.
Oh, Catherine, you first. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll go. I wanted to piggyback off of that, the new supplement. So for the community engaged CT pilots, just with that new one pager that is also to be included. I was just curious if there was any specific requirements or particular information that needed to be included in that, now that that was a longer section for those proposals.
Yep, so that is in the RFP and the instructions. So I'm scrolling through to find the page. We provide a lot of details, so please make sure that you take the time to read through the RFP and the instructions. They are
Oh, I'm so sorry. I saw the scoring. I didn't see.
Yep, no, you're fine. Nope.
I'm sorry.
I'm scrolling through very fast, so it's not jumping out to me, but there are specifics in there about what needs to be addressed. And then again, please make sure that you're working with the CEO core, because they will also make sure that you're, thinking about what the requirements are in terms of what's needed for the proposal, and then also, how these are scored as well. These grants get scored. They're reviewed very thoroughly, I will say. So we have scientific reviewers. So your grant will be assigned to 3 scientific reviewers. It also gets reviewed by the CEO core, again, regardless of whether you're a specific community engaged project or not. If you're a traditional pilot, you still get reviewed by the CEO core. And you also, all projects go through a review through the BIRD core as well. So again, it's good to utilize those resources. They all will be seeing your grants and projects and providing input about them. So again, I can't stress enough, please use those resources. There are 40 of you. I'm sorry, there are about 30 of you. So they're going to be very busy. So please do not wait until May 1st. I think I actually may not do consults after that point, but please do not wait to the last minute.
Okay. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
A nice the introduction. I'm the radiologist, Christian Care, and I'm doing Alzheimer patient last 3 years amyloid imaging, 500 subjects, and we did anti-amyloid therapy, 50 subjects. And then my question is, the out of state collaboration kind of stuff. amyloid and tau imaging, so-called ADNI public data is available online as the public domain.
Mhm.
So the very familiar with it. And then I have two subjects. One is in-house 500 the amyloid imaging, and then public domain 1,000 imaging. How can I collaborate with the out-of-state person, even out-of-country person, in long run, in the future?
So, for this project, there are, because of some new changes with NIH and new guidelines, this pilot will not support any foreign components. With regards to this project, because we're an idea state, funds for these idea projects are not allowed to go to non-idea states. So for example, I'll just use Pennsylvania because it's close and right up the road. If you had a collaborator at Penn and you wanted to send part of your budget to Penn for, say, doing some of these scans or something, you would be very tricky to be able to do that. You are allowed to do some fee for service things, but there are rules with the budget about, basically getting money for Delaware and then just sending it to a different state that's a non-idea state. Does that answer your question?
Okay, got it. And then the other question is, how can we connect the NIH funding to, at the same time, we can apply for the NIH funding? SBIR or NIH funding.
So you're allowed to submit as many grants as I think you would like. You're not, if there's scientific overlap, you can't hold two, right? So say you submit this pilot and you're selected for funding, it starts January 1st. If you get this same idea and this, right, from a scientific standpoint, if that gets funded through a different mechanism, then you wouldn't be able to hold both.
Okay.
Okay, does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah, got it.
Are there any other questions?
So Megan, so
Yes.
is this funding from state or the NIH or?
It's from the NIH.
Oh, it's a federal funding.
Yes.
NIH funding. Okay.
Yes.
But favor for Delawarean researcher.
Correct. So the IDEA program, so there's about half of the states in the US are considered IDEA states. So they don't receive the same amounts of funding as, say, like if you think about Massachusetts and all of the academic and clinical research institutes there. So we don't receive as much federal funding. So there are these special pots of money through NIGMS to help support like infrastructure and research through these various programs. So for submitting to CTR, the other thing is you couldn't also hold concurrent award through another IDEA mechanism. So whether that's like an INBRE or a COBRE, if you are selected for both types of mechanisms, you would have to pick one. So that does happen sometimes, right? Like PIs, you submit to more than one mechanism, you take your grant and you submit it to more than one mechanism. If it's different scientific questions and there's no scientific overlap and you're awarded multiple mechanisms, you can keep them. However, you cannot hold a CTR and an INBRE or a COBRE at the same time. You're only allowed to hold one at a time.
Okay, got it.
One other thing I just want to point out is it looks like there is, a lot of stuff to go through and fill out on this page and with this application. And if you think about what you're doing, right, you have to go through all of this. There's files, through some of this that you have to set up and submit. And it's really not until you get down to like the bottom where you have to submit the two files that you're going to spend the most time on, which is your aims and your research strategy. But this is, how the NIH process, if you will, works. I remember the first time I submitted an NIH grant, I spent, months and months and months like refining my aims and my research strategy. And then I was thinking I was all ready to, I was ahead of schedule and ready to submit. And then I realized I needed all these other documents, right? Whether like human subjects, dissemination plan, a data management plan, right? So this is a really good first, kind of exposure to this process and how it goes. And, we do this for a reason to help kind of prepare you for the things that you're going to have to consider in the future. And just like with any grant, just make sure that you're budgeting time to be able to get through the documents that you need, that you're working with your mentors, and that you're getting feedback on your project throughout.
Completely agree on that. And if you need help, again, just planning what to do when, reach out earlier rather than later, right? So if your mind's spinning right now, all that Megan told you you're going to have to do, just reach out and we can help you. There's a lot of people in the state that have been through this process and can help guide you through. Do this early, make sure that this is all done. This part's going to take you a long time. So make sure that you stage it correctly so that you can spend most of your time on the two things that Dr. Wenner mentioned, which is what gets you funded, the aims and the research plan. Spend time on that instead of kind of being confused about what else you're supposed to do. Megan, there is a chat question again.
Oh,
from
yes, go ahead.
Charlie.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I can't see that.
Yeah, I know. That's why. So she wants to know, is it acceptable to re-upload the letter of support from department chair and mentor that were submitted with the LOI, even if dated for the LOI submission?
Okay, one question.
So let me just answer this one. I think you can very quickly update it. I believe there are additional details that are required for this full proposal stage that were not required in the LOI. So I would encourage you to review the instructions. I don't think it's a good plan to just re-upload that letter from January. I will also say, please just make sure in your letters and in all of the bio sketches that your collaborators are appropriately talking about this project. We've had letters of support that were written for an INBRE project that was a completely different title that's been uploaded. This happens with bio sketches in the where you talk about your personal statement, that the role of the person does not align, in the biosketch with what is in the application, or it talks about the wrong application name. So please just make sure that, you're paying close attention to those details and that everything is aligning in terms of the project name, what the level of support is, like what the role is going to be. They all have to align.
Question, Megan.
Yes.
Two questions. One is that, is this reviewed by the Delaware researcher? And the other question is, NIH had got a preliminary score, and we have one more chance, second chance. So how tough is that get this funding? Is a probability like a 30% or how this juncture? Because serious, because only one chance. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. So you can always resubmit in a future year, or you can take this if it does not get funded. You can take this. I would look at it. I understand. I've received enough of rejection in my career. So if it does not get funded, you give yourself a day or two or up to 2 weeks to have, rage and anger. And then try to read the feedback, because from where I stand, the reviewers who review this, it includes people from Delaware, but I also reach out to other states to find expertise if we don't have it here in the state. So it's reviewed by other people in the state of Delaware, but also I do reach out through networks to find reviewers, and they could be all across the country. I have to find a lot of reviewers for this round. So the reviewers could be anybody, I guess. Again, I try to work the best that I can to make sure that it's some like science specific, but these reviewers have expertise and have served on study sections before. I will say that when you go to submit to NIH, that study section, not everybody on that study section is going to have expertise specific to your project. So it's really important that you're doing a good job communicating what you're doing, like very clearly, so that even if that person doesn't understand, they can read and say and be very excited about your idea and what you're doing. So that's for the review. So I will say in terms of funding, every year the percentage of success differs a little bit because of how many we have. We typically fund about 5. So I think you have like 18% chance this year. Sorry, I see all of these letters and all of these studies, and I really wish I was independently wealthy and I could just fund all of them, because there are amazing ideas. You all have really amazing ideas.
And it is possible to take the experience from going through the Excel process. And I would say Megan's group does a great job with reviews. I too have been rejected a lot, but when you read the reviews that come from the panels that Dr. Wenner has put together, they are very helpful. It won't feel like that if you don't get funded. It'll
Yes.
feel not like that. But the PDC has actually helped people take those proposals. You can submit again the next time the RFP comes out for Excel, but we've had success submitting them other places and getting them funded. So the process that's in place for Excel is extremely helpful as a stepping stone to getting funding, even if you don't get the CTR grant that you applied for. So I encourage you to continue working on the project. And we will reach out after the score. The PDC will reach out and we'll pull in people that can help to just go over, I still call them pink sheets because I'm old, but the critiques that you got. Yeah. That's how if someone refers to a critique on an NIH grant as a pink sheet, they are my generation, they're not Megan's generation. But we can go through them and make recommendations and even help you kind of parse through what the reviewer is saying and how it's helpful. So do take advantage of that.
Yes. Yes, I know it's hard and it's very disappointing when you don't get selected, but try to view it as like, well, the worst case scenario is I have a really strong draft to move forward with that I can, improve upon and submit somewhere else.
So we're almost at time. I think we have time maybe for one more question, but I really want to thank Dr. Wenner for joining us today. It was very, very, very helpful. We will continue discussions, in particular if you have questions, at the Thursday morning Junior Investigator Network calls. As you've seen, you can email us at mentoring. You can reach out to Dr. Wenner's group. You can put in a ticket. I encourage you, don't spend too much time. If you run into a block, reach out for help quickly, because it's likely that someone around can help you quicker than you'll be able to figure it out. It is a little bit daunting, especially when you're first getting started. So I encourage people to stay engaged. But is there any last question that anyone might have in our last minute here? Anything else, Julianne, that we forgot to mention or say that comes to mind for you as the PDC coordinator?
I have a final question actually at the last moment.
Okay.
So if we have a collaborator which is not from the US, from outside, there BioSketch should be also the same new format of the NIH.
A foreign component. I'll throw that to Megan, but Shaka, we can talk about that. That's probably not a great idea.
Okay.
Yes, I would say with some of the changes, I don't know that it would be allowed.
Okay.
I can talk. You can set up a time to talk to, or just contact the mentoring email and we'll get together and talk about what your specific collaboration is. You can work with people, but my recommendation, again, I'm not Megan, I don't run the program, so this is just my advice, is stay away from foreign components until kind of the dust clears on all of the
Yeah.
different things that have been changing at NIH. It doesn't mean you can't work with the person, but you just can't pay them or put them on the grant.
Or publications, right?
Or publications, yes, right.
Okay.
Megan's
Thank
face
you.
summarizes the whole thing. It's just painful, and everyone's trying to
Yeah.
figure out what do we do. And as a topic for one of the gin calls coming up, we'll talk about these new rules around publications. In fact, one of them is not even a new rule; it's just a reinterpretation of an old rule. I did put in, because Megan mentioned foreign component, and I think I did too. That's a specific thing in NIH speak. So I gave you guys the link if you want to go down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what all of these terms mean. But it's better just, if you have someone from another country that you're going to be working with, just reach out and we'll talk to you about how to manage it, things you would need to know going forward. But Shelka, set up a time to chat and we can
Okay,
talk
thank you.
specifically. Okay. Thank you all very much. This is recorded, Julianne, and Julianne, I sent you my slides. The information in my slides is also in the RFP. I just kind of pulled it to keep it kind of at the forefront. The points that I think you really need to make sure everyone knows, but those are shared. And please keep in touch and join us. We meet every Thursday. If you're unaware of that GIN call, let us know, mentoring@de-ctr.org, and we'll add you to the invite list. And that part of that meeting is always open discussion. So if you have a question and it's quick and it's on a Thursday, think of it on a Wednesday, we can answer it there or help you get connected. But thank you all very much. We hope you can all get funded eventually.
I know,
And we
yes.
hope this process is helpful. We will do our best to make sure that it is helpful to you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Megan. That was great.
Thanks.
Really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
inviting me. I appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah. See you guys.